Hello. Well, today I've been thinking about, or gonna talk about something that's I just found out about not too long ago. This time of you guys watching this. Um, it was recently announced that there will be a Texas Chainsaw Massacre TV show, as well as a movie from A24 because they have the rights to that franchise now. And another thing, which I have not talked about, I know for a fact, is Crystal Lake, the TV show that A24 is producing. Um, that show itself has been going through quite a bit of stuff. Like, they got rid of one showrunner, and then I believe they had to redo some scripts or something of the sort because like they kind of had a because when A24 like saw what they were doing, they were like, no, the things have to be done differently. So I just remember various reports when that all happened. Of course, so many people were in many articles about it, and so I got confused as to what was going on exactly, other than they're pretty much going to have to sort of start from scratch. But basically, from what I gathered, um, initially it was like they had to rewrite things, but then it's like, no, we have to reshoot stuff too. Um, and it was also kind of confusing because it's like, it's going to take place at Crystal Lake when like Mrs. Voorhees was there and Jason was a kid, and then later it was like, Jason's gonna also be an adult, so it's like gonna take place in the past, and then present day or whatever the contemporary time will be for the present day for adult Jason. And Linda Cardinale, she's gonna be Mrs. Voorhees, and she's a very good actress, so I'm sure she'll be a very good Mrs. Voorhees. And by now, the complete season basically is done, as far as I'm aware, like in terms of filming of Crystal Lake. So that's all done. Since I haven't really talked about this show, I'm kind of saying stuff that people have already talked about. But yeah, there's various people. It's like A24. That's a company that would produce things like The Lighthouse and Uncut Gems and stuff like that. Stuff that's fairly small yet has decent budget for like filmmakers and people to go to with their projects. Might be small or maybe like even mid-range, and now doing stuff like a franchise like obviously Friday the 13th, now Texas Chainsaw. A lot of people are like, here I thought they just wanted to do smaller stuff, like indie kind of stuff, and maybe even outsider things, stuff like that. Normal distributors and production companies might not really be interested in, stuff like that. So, this is interesting. Obviously Crystal Lake first, which is going to be on Peacock. Of course, Friday the 13th, the name is owned by Paramount, whereas, Warner Brothers now, because, they owned by, they own New Line. They've been kind of like the like owners of like Jason Voorhees and Crystal Lake and everything. But so yeah, a lot of people are like, why are so many shows or horror franchises going to TV shows? Chucky has a TV show. Um, that's the big one. I mean, there's other stuff, but it's like these film franchises are now TV shows, and I know Friday the 13th. There was a show called Friday the 13th, but that really had nothing to do with the actual franchise. Um, I remember seeing it when I was younger, like on Chiller TV or whatever. Um, and yeah, I'm like, it was fine. I don't love it like so many others do, but I thought that was an alright show. Um, and with this Texas Chainsaw Massacre show, from what we can tell, from what's been revealed, it's going to basically take place around the time of the first film. And I've seen people like, are we ever going to be beyond the first film? Like, we get it. That's the best one. Basically, that's the consensus. There's sequels of them that people have, they enjoy, but also at the same time, it's like, let's be honest, none of them basically hold a candle to the original. None of the sequels or the remake because pretty much every sequel seems to be a direct sequel. Texas Chainsaw 2, Texas Chainsaw 3, even, that pretty much ignores the second film entirely, even though there is a character from the second one in 3. But, I guess they like that character, and that's the only reason the character basically has an appearance, or even if it was small. Then the Next Generation kind of is its own thing, not really having anything to do with the first two, but also kind of having something to do with them. And then post the remake and its prequel, they've just had like a couple of Texas Chainsaw 3D and like Leatherface, and then the Netflix film, which people hate. And so it's like, with Texas Chainsaw, it's kind of like, in a way, people want another film, but also it's like we want something that's good. And then with a TV show, it's kind of like, well, me thinking, man, I've heard people talk about it. Obviously, the reaction is, there are people who are happy, and there are people who are not so happy, and there are people who are mixed, and I'm kind of mixed. I've also been kind of mixed on the whole Crystal Lake whole thing, because, obviously there was initial reports, and then when they're pretty much starting over, for me, I'm like, well, that doesn't sound good. It sounded kind of interesting at first, but now, it's like, what's that show going to be like? Because now it's like, they're like, I guess, doing different timelines, and hopefully that'll all work out from young Jason to like drowns, or quote unquote drowns. I guess depending on how they'll go about that, from him being a kid to then being an adult, goes around slashing camp counselors and such. It'll be interesting just to see how that show will go, as well as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre film will go. And apparently they're also going to be producing, A24 will produce a new film. Whether it will actually be tied to the TV show is not, at least not now, as of recording on Wednesday. Oh yeah, by the way, happy February. But as of now, we don't know whether or not it will be similar or will connect. I guess will be connected to the new film will be connected to the show, or if they'll be separate entities. And if that's the case, that could probably be confusing to people because the assumption will be they'll want to make a film and then probably more films, and it's like, will that film also be one of these where it's a sequel that ignores all the other sequels and only the original exists, or like what are they gonna do? Um, the TV show will take place for Texas Chainsaw, um, around the time period of the first film, and then who knows? Maybe the film and presumable films in the future. I would imagine they want to make more. Because if you have the rights to make multiple, like a TV show and a film, it would kind of make sense you'd want to have multiple movies. So, who knows what will happen with that. Um, with Friday the 13th, they seem to want to do another film also, which I want and a lot of fans want. But also, we kind of want something with some sort of news with the Crystal Lake show also. It's like, well, what's going on with that show? I've seen a poster floating around. I've seen other, pictures here and there. Hopefully, it's good because it definitely, it makes you wonder what's going on, especially after showrunner is removed and they're kind of starting over. What's going on with Crystal Lake beyond the fact that shooting of season 1 is done. There hasn't been too much word outside of all that. Obviously, Texas Chainsaw is brand new news, so we shall see what will happen. Hopefully, there'll be something good, because if not, that'll be quite a disappointment, obviously. But yeah. Anyway, what do you think about a Texas Chainsaw Massacre TV show and new film from A24, as well as the overall, the Crystal Lake show, which, again, I was kind of playing catch up in this since I haven't talked about that at all. You excited for any of these? You excited about A24 being the company that's going to be producing these new shows in film? Or not? Do you think they should stick to going with small, like indie type films and projects and all of that, or no? Are you mixed? I'm kind of I'm sort of mixed. I mean, on one hand, I do like some of the stuff A24 has produced, and of course, there's stuff that they put out that not super fond of, but obviously that happens with pretty much every company. But A24 has this sort of a prestige kind of well, it's kind of looked at as like a company that produces prestige sort of films, or kind of films like the films that they release is like, oh, these are some quality stuff, and and they're all fairly competently made, obviously. But obviously the overall stories and everything of the various films will be different. obviously depending on one's tastes and what their overall I guess enjoyment and being enthralled with whatever story and characters are in said films. Yeah, I'm kind of rambling, but I hopefully that all makes sense. But the A24 is kind of held at a sort of high standard. Basically, I should have just said that. Kind of wanted to make a point about the prestige aspect of it, but I think I kind of just went around in circles. But they're held in high regard. That was all difficult to say. Um, so on one hand, there's that, but on the other hand, they haven't really until Crystal Lake hadn't really tackled a franchise, and we haven't really seen too much beyond some again basic behind the scenes pictures, some of the cast that we know about, as well as just little details about making the show, getting new showrunner, redoing stuff. Maybe they didn't have to redo the scripts or anything, but again, it's been a while since I really looked at that quite a bit. So until there's like some sort of like trailer or whatever, I'm gonna be kind of open to see what will happen, but I'm not gonna be overtly excited either, if that makes sense. It's like I want to try to keep my expectations tempered. I don't want them to be so high that if there's any disappointment, it's going to be such a disappointment for me where I'm just like, oh well, this was trash, even if it wasn't. And same with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Hopefully both the shows will be good, and hopefully the Texas Chainsaw film will be good. Again, really interesting what they'll do with that. Again, will these sequels exist in the world of this film that they'll do, or will only the original exist? That'll be interesting to find out. So, yeah. Give me your thoughts if you want, or not. But yeah. Next time, hopefully, I will talk about something else, like a very specific film. Lately, I've been in the mood for watching like some courtroom dramas and stuff, so I don't know. I talk about one of those. Um, yeah. Anyway, I hope all of you are doing well. Hope you're all having a great day. Hope you'll have a great weekend. I hope your week has been great. And I will see you all next time. Please take care.